On December 27, 1892, Livingstone and Biddle College, now known as Johnson C. Smith University, played in Salisbury, North Carolina, with Biddle winning 5-0. Over time, HBCU football has evolved. HBCU football's popularity continues to rise. Millions attend games each year and millions more watch on television. The HBCU bands provide some of the top entertainment in the country. Over that time, some of the best players to ever play in the National Football League played at HBCUs. Every Monday through Friday on the HBCU Football Daily Podcast, national radio and television host Donal Ware takes a look at what's happening in HBCU football and talks with coaches, players, administrators, and media about the season. Make sure you join the conversation on social media. Now, here's your host, Donal Ware.
Thank you for joining me on this edition of the HBCU Football Daily Podcast for today, Friday, October 6th. I'm Donal Ware. It's Friday! HBCU National Game of the Week. And let me preface before I talk about the HBCU National Game of the Week. I mean, there were any number of games we could go with. We could go with Miles and Benedict. We could go with Grambling and Alcorn State. We could go with Florida A&M and Southern. To a lesser degree, we could go with Bowie State and Virginia State. The game we're going to go with, okay, is Miles and Benedict. And to me, this is the first true game of the week, meaning the implications mean a lot. I think the previous weeks, it was a situation where you were picking a game because it was the best game on the schedule. While this is sort of in the same vein, it truly means something because remember, the SIAC has done away with divisions. So this could, in fact, so it's the number one team versus the number two team for the SIAC championship when the regular season is all said and done. So this could be a preview of that. And further, okay, if I looked at Southern and Florida A&M, which was the game I was going to go with, okay, but if I look at that, it is a game for Southern, which if Southern loses, now it's truly behind the eight ball because it'll have two losses in SWAC play. For Florida A&M, a loss to Southern doesn't mean a whole lot. Really, for Southern, it is in essence, even though it's an interdivision SWAC game, in essence, it's a non-conference game, counts as a conference game. But I'm just saying, because a loss for Florida A&M doesn't affect the Rattlers really one way or the other in terms of that Eastern Division crown necessarily. Now, of course, you still got a lot of games left to play. They're already one up on Jackson State, still got Alabama, A&M. I get all of that. But it affects Florida A&M a little bit less. Grambling and Alcorn State. Yeah, if Grambling loses that game, it'll be the first conference loss for Grambling in that division. It puts Alcorn State right back there, but a loss by Alcorn State. Now you got two losses in the SWAC, and then again, Bowie State and Virginia State. I mean, Virginia State's rocking and rolling. A loss by Bowie State would almost put Bowie State out of contention. They'd have to have a lot. The Bulldogs would have to have a lot to happen to get back in contention. Here, no divisions. You've got the top two of the top teams, or really two of the top teams. Fort Valley State doesn't have any, even though it lost to Tuskegee early in the season, doesn't have any losses. So you've got Tuskegee, Fort Valley State, you've got Benedict and Miles, all right at the top of the SIAC. So let's break, and it was fun. When I really looked at this and broke the game down and looked inside of the numbers, this was a really fun game to really look at. So let's break it down. I look at Benedict. I mean, Benedict hasn't lost a regular season game in a year and a half. Okay. Last loss by Benedict was in the playoffs. So Benedict is rocking and rolling, outscoring a lot of its opponents. It's getting it done defensively. Like when I look at the offense, it's solid. They're averaging 150 yards rushing a game. That's pretty decent. It's a running back. You got a couple of running backs to tote the rock from quarterback position. 9 touchdowns to just 1 interception on the season. So, it's no doubt that Benedict is getting it done. Benedict is definitely getting it done in terms of from an offensive perspective. But this is where Benedict is excelling. We talked about, we talked about Lubert Danilis and, how great he is coming into the season. He's HBCU All-American, all of that, which he is. But there's another young man on the other side, Jaden Broughton. He's got 15 tackles, for loss already on the season and 7.5 sacks on the season. Danilis 14.5 tackles for loss and 9 sacks. So those guys, Miles is going to have to figure out a way to really block those guys. So listen, defensively, this is a dominant football team. And by the way, the Tigers have not given up a single point in the second half. They've only given up 3 points in the second quarter. So it's a dominant team from that perspective. I'm going to get into that a little bit more. When I look at Miles, Miles from a quarterback position, we'll just look at the position collectively. 16 touchdowns to 1 interception on the season. Miles can run the football as well, 170 yards rushing, where I may have, and on the other side of the football, Miles does a good job of stopping the run. Where there may be some concern is in the passing game, giving up 211 yards passing per game. So maybe a little bit of concern there. But let me break it down a little bit further. Sometimes stats can be misleading. Miles has played 2 FCS opponents. Has played Alabama State, which Miles defeated Alabama State, at Alabama State. That's a big win. And I think it was like 27-14. So it wasn't like it was a close game per se. And then lost to Arkansas Pine Bluff by 1 point and had an opportunity to win that game on its next to last possession in the fourth quarter on 4th and 2 from the Arkansas Pine Bluff 5. Miles decided to go for it, did not get it. Maybe they kicked the field goal, they take the lead. It didn't happen that way. But Miles is a really, really good. This is a really, really good football team. Both teams protect the football. Miles has turned it over only 4 times this year. Benedict 5 times this year. They both have dominated their opponents, specifically in the third quarter. This is where things separate a little bit for me. If I look at this thing, on not necessarily on paper, a little bit, I really like what Miles is doing. I think a better offense than Benedict has. Defensively, I would say that Benedict is much more dominant. And that offensive line, this is the thing, that offensive line for Miles is going to have to be on its P's and Q's. You got 2 edge rushers who are dominant. We're talking about 2 guys that has 16.5 sacks combined in 5 football games. That's a lot. That's a lot of sacks. And that is, and the thing about it, Danilis is getting double teamed. That's, obviously that has enabled for some opportunities on the other side of the football in terms of rushing the football. This is what I would also say outside of the numbers. Benedict has not been tested as of yet this season. Benedict has played Shaw, Edward Waters, Lane, Shawan, and Morehouse. Benedict has not been tested. Meanwhile, Miles has played, Arkansas Pine Bluff and Alabama State, stepping up, going 1-1 in those games. Let me give you my prediction. Last year, I thought when Benedict and Fort Valley State met, and by the way, Chennis Berry's going to have his guys ready to play for the Tigers. It would be a game And it's really not a game because Miles is really, really good. If it was a lesser opponent, it may be a game where Benedict looks ahead because they got that national game next Thursday, ESPN2 against Fort Valley State. But let me take you back to last year. I thought Benedict was the better football team when Benedict and Fort Valley State met. I think Fort Valley State was getting more kudos at that time than Benedict, and Benedict wiped Fort Valley State, off the football field. I mean, it was a dominating performance by Benedict in that victory. That said, even though Benedict has not played a tough opponent, and Miles will be by far its toughest opponent, Chennis Berry's going to have his guys ready to play mentally. And for that, and what Benedict has been able to do, cannot go against the Tigers. The game will be at Miles, should be a really, really good crowd. But I have Benedict winning this football game in a close football game. I'm going to go Benedict in a close football game by 3 points. I've got Benedict beating Miles by 3 points. Your thoughts? You can hit us up via Twitter at Boxtorow, BOXTOROW. Follow us. While you're there, you can hit me on my personal Twitter, or X as it's known now, my personal X account at DWare1, at DWare1. Listen up on the weekend edition of Boxtorow, which can be heard on a radio station near you as well as on Sirius XM. I'm going to give you more information about that. We got a really, really big show, okay? We're going to be joined by Charles Huff, the head football coach at Marshall, a Hampton grad, only the second HBCU grad to ever head coach at the FBS level, okay? So Charles Huff going to join us on the weekend edition of the program. Also, we've got a celebrity guest picker in the house, okay? We like to do our celebrity guest pickers. And Michael Bivens of New Edition and BBD fame is going to join us. One of the games he's going to pick is the Morehouse-Tuskegee game for that Morehouse-Tuskegee Classic. I forget the other game that we'll ask him to pick, but he's going to pick 2 HBCU games, 2 FBS games, and 2 National Football League games this weekend. So be on the lookout and tune in to the weekend edition of Box to Row. Can be heard beginning tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern, or beginning this evening, 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 Central, 3 Pacific time, on Sirius XM College Sports Radio. That's channel 84. Write that down. Okay. Also on Sirius XM tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central time, and 6 a.m. Pacific time on the HBCU channel, Sirius XM, channel 142, and on a radio station near you. All you have to do is log on to our website at boxtorow.com, click on the affiliates link, and find a radio station in your area that carries the program. If there's not a radio station in your area that carries the program, you can also find us on the TuneIn app as well. Listen, enjoy your games this weekend. Have a wonderful weekend. I probably won't talk with you on Monday. Probably will not talk with you on Monday, but on Tuesday, the HBCU Football Daily Podcast will return. Not only will we run down the games from week 6, but I'll also give you my takeaways on Tuesday. HBCU Football Daily Podcast, no edition on Monday, but we're back on Tuesday. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk with you on Tuesday.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the HBCU Football Daily Podcast. You can also listen to the podcast at boxtorow.com, iHeartMedia, or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to get your HBCU football fix on Box to Row with Donal Ware each weekend on the radio station near you, and on Sirius XM on HBCU, channel 142, and on ESPNU Radio on Sirius XM, channel 84. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Box to Row for the latest in HBCU football, and don't forget to tell a friend.